Everyone, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Remain standing for a moment of reflection for our troops who keep us free. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Lisa, would you read the Open Public Meetings Act?
According to the Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of this meeting has been given to the Daily Record. Notice has been posted in the Municipal Building, 204 Flanders Drakestown Road, Mount Olive Township, New Jersey, and notices were sent to those requesting the same.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Almeida? Here. Mr. Frente?
Here.
Mrs. Laybaugh?
Here.
Mr. Perkins?
Here.
Mr. Roman?
Here.
Mr. Nicastro?
Here.
Mr. Mania?
Here. First on our agenda is a discussion on the water and sewer study.
I'm going to do that tonight, John. Gary was going to come out, but since it's 2 days before Christmas and the report is pretty self-explanatory, we told him
I
to
can't
stay.
hear you.
We told him to stay
You
home.
got, I know you have such a sweet voice, but I need it a little louder.
I was saying, John, we were going to have Gary here tonight, but since it's 2 days before Christmas and the report is pretty self-explanatory, we told him to stay home. So I'm going to cover it for everybody really quickly, okay? As you know, we do the water sewer study every year around this time to see whether we need to have any rate adjustments for the subsequent year. So we do a section for water, we do a section for sewer. I'm going to start with the sewer side. We've projected out through 2020, and we believe that we will need no rate increase through that time. We actually expect to have a pretty healthy surplus, primarily from the connection fees that we've been getting in. So no issue with sewer at all. In terms of water, again, we also projected out through 2020. And as you know, water is usually a little bit tighter than the sewer side is. For those of you, Ray's nodding his head, for those of you who've been here for a while. We expect that water, we won't need to see any adjustment until 2017. And again, depending upon what actually happens between now and then, it may actually get pushed off a little bit further than that. But right now, we're seeing at least through the end of 2016 or 2 years out, we're fine in the water utility. Anybody have any questions?
Any questions?
Not just yet.
No.
No questions? Mr. Roman?
On the water, trying to find, what's the rate anticipation that we see after 2017, the increase?
I don't know, Alex. I'm going to guess between 5 and 10%, but again, there's a lot that could happen between now and then, so.
And has there been any thought of doing minor increases so that that increase out into 2015 won't be as much?
We can. Well, it wouldn't be till 2017.
Yeah.
So what I would say is we should just leave 2015 the way it is at this point because we're already in December.
Right.
And if we're going to make an adjustment, typically we want to do it for the full year. So I would say we should leave 15 the way it is, see where we are at the end of next year. Maybe do the report a little bit earlier, so if we want to do a slight increase in 16, we can have it ready to go at the beginning of 16.
Yeah, because I'd be more amenable to having minor increases so that not to give a big, huge jump.
Sure. So I'll put it on my calendar that we'll do it a little bit earlier, and if we need to, we can do an adjustment for 16 then.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Sure.
Mr. Perkins?
Thank you, Mr. President. Sherry, I would just, and I don't know what the build-out schedule is yet or how far along they are at Morris Chase, when those ratepayers get absorbed into the system and you bring that capital, all of the water mains and the tank and everything into capital.
Mm-hmm.
Depending upon where it is in 2017, that may help offset some of the rate increase.
Yes, exactly. Okay.
Mr. Canning?
I won't be here. I'll be in South Carolina.
If I may respond
point,
to both points, and Councilman Perkins makes an excellent point. There's two managerial efforts that the Water Department's been doing, which may be beneficial. One, we're still tied up with the due diligence with the Morris Chase, Morris Hunt developments, and I believe that's down at Fred and Jeff's office. We're trying to slowly get the due diligence done. They're kind of going kicking and screaming. The intention is to take over those systems. They're brand-new capital systems, and they should improve the revenue flow for our water utility. The other side is on the water conservation side. We've been successfully able to reduce our lost water from about 36 to 38% to down in the 22% range as of the third quarter of 2014. The water industry generally is accepted about 20% lost water. So we're in that range. At one point about a year ago, a lot of water main breaks. That's all lost revenue and that's lost money. So when you lose that extra percentage on gallonage, it's lost revenue within the water utility. So on those two efforts, we'll see if they come to fruition, and maybe we're able to postpone and forestall a rate increase. So on the managerial end, I want to commend Mike Lotta and Timmy Quinn and the Public Works folks to doing a good job.
Mr. Ferretti.
I see 2017, there's interconnections construction for 400,000. What is that allocated to? Or where is that allocated to?
Probably interconnection. That would be, the eventual goal is to tie up on top of the hill here, all our systems between the tin system, the gold mine system, eventually, for two reasons. One, just for backup in all our systems. Eventually, we want one big interconnected system. Second is for fire response. Currently, we have, it's something we're going to be talking about come budget time. We have dry lines in the system at the top of the hill here, Corey Road and Victoria Drive, and that development. Once we pressure test those lines, and we have to decide whether they're sufficient, do we have to change them, the interconnect, the DEP's given us the go-ahead as part of that, it's part of the bigger project, to be able to do the interconnect, not for new residential hookups, they're not going to allow us that, but for the interconnect that we can charge those lines with fire hydrants that are in those streets that currently are dry, they're dead. So the long-term goal is to have all those interconnects, have a redundant water supply, as well as have sufficient fire capacity for firefighting. We saw the tragedy about a year and a half ago off of Sand Shore and the lack of charged lines. So it's a long-term project, but that's what that interconnect is about.
Yeah, I get a lot of questions in my neighborhood because we have the lines in the streets, but we're not connected. So
Yeah, eventually the long-term goal is to get them charged, but again, it's not an easy task, it's not a cheap task. The best thing would be if those lines didn't dry rot.
Right.
But we will know in your neighborhood, and some of the other neighborhoods we should know by spring.
Mr. Roman,
Asked and answered.
any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
I just thought of something, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Sean, for the Sutton Plaza water tank, since that I believe is one of our most visible water tanks, has there been any thought of putting either a logo or a saying on that tank?
There has been. I had a discussion last spring when this came up with Mike Latta. The immediate tank concerns, I believe, are Village Green coming up this year. I had asked if we could forestall some of the other tanks with the drain downs, the repainting. Don't quote me, I'm pretty sure it's Village Green, I'd have to check my notes, but I know the Sutton tank, I had asked specifically about that because of the outside. It doesn't look the greatest, but it's, as far as deterioration or threat to the water supply, it's not there, and they're not comfortable forestalling the other tanks that are on maintenance schedule, so I want to say we're at least 2 years away.
Right, but has there been any thought of, because that is one of our most visible ones, to put either or a logo or a saying, something just...
We can, once we pay, to paint the tanks and do the whole maintenance, you're talking $200,000. I could be wrong on that, but when we do that, absolutely, I think, welcome to Mount Olive, the logo.
Yeah,
something that comes up 206, I think that's suitable to the community, and where we're at now is certainly appropriate. From what I'm told from the water department, though, they're not comfortable forestalling the other ones and doing that in 2015.
Thank you.
Mr. Minnia?
Any?
Any other questions? Mrs. Laybow?
I think the Village Green one was done a couple years ago, because I remember
Yep.
being on council, right? Is that what you're going to say, John?
It's one of the other tanks, Colleen.
But I was going to ask, like, how many years, I forget, was it 7, 10 years that they're good for before they have to redo them again? Because it was $200,000.
Yeah, I'm going to check my notes and get back to that. I don't want to tell you something that's erroneous. But as I always do, I will get you the answer, and I'll email it to the council.
Yeah, okay, great, thank you.
Mr. Perkins?
Hey, Sean, real quick, you may want to look at I don't know, I guess the best way would be called it a banner that would strap on.
Like the wrappings, like the vehicle type of things, or?
Yeah, something like that that goes on the tank.
Yeah.
Relatively cheap. 10,000 maybe,
Very
you know,
good.
to get one of those, and it adheres to it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a steel tank, so it may have magnets that go around it, and it just adheres to it. It takes care of that for a quickie.
It's not bad, it's cosmetic, it's not a bad idea. You're very, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mr. President.
Yeah, Oakwood's what's coming up.
Any further questions? We have the 11 resolutions on the agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none. Any old business?
I have a question
Mrs.
about
Laybell.
old business for Mr. Canning. I was reading through the emails about the DEP, I guess, shot down what we were trying to do over at the ITC by the acreage. What's that all about? What happened?
Yeah, what happened there, they didn't necessarily shut down, they raised a health alert to the health officer. That we don't own, this has to do with the Coneville memo they had sent to council. DEP currently owns that, and they've had monitoring wells for time immemorial. And I don't know the history, whether this is the first time or they've had other, concerns in the past. I don't know that for a fact. One of the monitoring wells did pick up a compound that was higher than their acceptable standards. So they immediately took, acted upon their precautions and their procedures. They'd gotten in touch with the local resident as well as everybody in that area. There was a subsequent memo which they sent. They're doing more monitoring. As of now, they're very comfortable, except for one structure and one resident who they are in touch with currently. It's notable for us because we have not taken ownership of that site. There was, over the past 4 years, numerous discussions. We still have that contract in place. We're working close with Fred's office as well as the potential vendor. And just as a refresher to council, back in 2011, there was brokered a deal whereby the vendor was supposed to put a solar farm on there, and we would take ownership of that off the DEP. DEP was very, anxious for us to take ownership of that. We would not unless we were able to consummate the contract where we knew we had revenue coming in, covering our insurance costs. Because it's somewhat of a daunting task. We want to make sure the due diligence is in place before we own a landfill. So as of now, we're at the 11th hour. We could take ownership anytime we want, but those concerns of the vendor were never brought forward to the DEP. The issue at stake right now is the amount of cap space. They feel that at 100% is not fully safe. They're asking DEP to pay for it. DEP does not want to pay for that, and that's where it's at, mainly between the vendor and DEP. But this came up as 3 years down the road as somewhat of a health concern. So DEP, they own it. They have to clean it or remediate it. But as soon as it came across, I thought it was sufficiently important that council was surprised of it.
And then on the other side, the north side, the 57 acres, what was that about with the?
57 acres. Council will recall, again, back in 2012 or 13, we took ownership of the 57-acre parcel adjacent to the BASF site. We paid for that with our own money, not with open space dollars. Buying that, we knew that there was a deed restriction on that property. There's already, it's in the planning area 2 zone. There's already, there's utilities inside, water, sewer, and there's approvals for office research on that site. Well, we've been asking DEP, because we'd like to see that area of town opened up to more, in accord with the Economic Development Committee's vision, Jeff Stadelman in particular, the work, live, play type of concept. We'd like to see our property marketed along with BSF, and on the other side is the Rockefeller Group property, to make it one big area of town, kind of a center of town. So we had asked DEP to consider taking off those deed restrictions. We entered into negotiations with their agent. We came to an agreement about 8 months ago, and lo and behold, DEP sent a letter saying, well, they didn't want to honor that agreement, and the person that was purported to have authority to have those negotiations no longer had authority to enter into those negotiations. So, as is my habit, I sent a nastygram to DEP, copied our senators and assembly people. I ran it by Fred and Jeff. They were somewhat alarmed at my language. That's true.
It was strong.
But anyway, that's
good.
currently
It was
where
good.
it's at. They want us to go through what's called a Ogden-Rooney process, whereby there's a House, correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, but a House subcommittee hearing, and our interpretation, and I know we're still researching it, is that this process only takes effect when the state of New Jersey is transferring real property in ownership, which is understandable. We don't want people just willy-nilly getting property from the state. Our position is that this is nothing more than a deed restriction being lifted. It's not a closing, it's not a transfer of real property. We own it, for God's sake. Our alternative is we can just go ahead and market it as office research. We don't need the state. So that's currently the impasse that we find ourselves at.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry for the long-winded answer.
No, I wanted a little explanation. Thank you.
You up?
Mr. Perkins,
just a comment that it makes you feel good when the DEP is involved. I mean, you see that bang-up job they're doing at Fenimore, so.
Yeah.
I mean, every time the DEP gets involved, it just seems to, everything comes to a stop.
We're here to help.
All the progress that's come before that is for naught. It's a sad day.
Quick question, Mr. Canning. Is Gold Mine Road opened yet?
It was due to be open this week. We are actually going to hold off for about a week or so. We want to make sure all the signage is in. I'm waiting for Gene to do another drive-by. We want to make sure before we lift the gates that we are fully comfortable. DEP's been putting the signage up there, making sure everything's right. The initial go was for earlier this week. Timmy Quinn tells me they did not do it this week, and we want to make sure either next week or after New Year's. Regardless, I'd rather hold off a week or two and just make sure it's right. So I fully support
Because
that
I'm being
decision.
asked by the public. So
Yeah.
you're expected to be open this week?
Imminent, but again, we have the New Year's holiday coming up. I would not be surprised if it's, the following Monday or Tuesday. I just want to make
Okay.
sure it's right, and I told Timmy I'd rather err on the side of caution.
Just so I have some kind of an answer.
Yeah, it's
You'll be in
imminent, but
Florida.
Pardon?
You'll be in Florida, don't worry about it.
put it this way, it's imminent, but we want to make sure it's right before we do it.
Very good. Okay. Any new business?
Question for Sean.
Mr. DeCastro?
Did anybody, I was coming by this afternoon or earlier this evening, and I wasn't sure if anybody reported down by the diner, across from the diner where Jeff's Golf used to be. There's the manhole there. It was off and it was cracked and it was off the side, and it looked, if someone happened to be walking there, they actually could fall into there.
In Route 46 or?
Yeah, on the Route 46, it was on the eastbound side, right where the barber shop is. It's on the property there, so I'm
It's-
sure
yeah,
it's
it's in the
ours.
parking
It's
lot,
like in
yeah.
the parking lot, but it's flipped and there's a hole where
Right by the
manhole is.
BP?
I'll check on iWorks, it might be in iWorks already.
Yeah, I meant
Barbershop
to.
parking
Follow up
lot?
tomorrow.
Yeah, it's right at the street, right next to the street, but if someone happened to be walking along
Sure.
that way, it's open and it's tilted and it's broken. So I just saw that and I was gonna.
Yeah, it may be in iWorks, I'll know in a couple minutes.
Yeah, that's fine. I just wanted to make you aware of it in case.
Any other new business? Anyone from the public wish to be heard? If not, I'll close it to the public. Motion to adjourn to the
So
public
moved.
meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So would you kindly read the Open Public Meetings Act?
According to the Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of this meeting has been given to the Daily Record. Notice has been posted in the Municipal Building, 204 Flinders Drakes Town Road, Bud Lake, New Jersey, and notices were sent to those requesting the same.
Roll call?
Mr. Amianda?
Here.
Mr. Frente?
Here.
Mrs. Layback?
Here.
Mr. Perkins?
Here.
Mr. Roman?
Here.
Mr. Nacastro?
Here.
Mr. Mania?
Here. Okay, next on the agenda is a resolution. And I'm going to get over and read this. Mr. Huntley, would you please come up?
Grab this little mic here, John. John? Need a microphone.
I got a big mouth.
It don't matter.
It don't matter.
Gotta be on the record.
A resolution of the Township of Mount Olive in the County of Morris and State of New Jersey commending Sparta Ready Mix for its continual support to the Township of Mount Olive and the Township projects. Whereas the Township of Mount Olive has in the past undertaken various improvements which have necessitated the placement of concrete for footings and bases, and solicit the donation of the materials from Sparta Ready Mix. And whereas the Township of Mount Olive undertook the project of relocating the Veterans Memorial from Route 46 to Turkey Brook Park, where the foundation concrete was provided by Sparta Ready Mix, at no cost to the taxpayers and residents of the Township of Mount Olive. And whereas the Township of Mount Olive undertook the project of installing an electronic message board at the Mount Olive Township Municipal Building, where the foundation concrete was provided by Sparta Ready Mix at no cost to the taxpayers and residents of the Township of Mount Olive. And whereas the Township of Mount Olive undertook the construction of the 9/11 Memorial at Turkey Brook Park, where the foundation concrete and footings were provided by Sparta Ready Mix at no cost to the taxpayers and residents of the Township of Mount Olive. And whereas the residents of the Township of Mount Olive, the Township's employees and officials have been fortunate to have such a dedicated company provide materials to offset costs of improvements over many years. Now therefore be it resolved by the Mayor and Township Council of the Township of Mount Olive in the County of Morris and State of New Jersey, that they do hereby recognize the great contribution and efforts of Sparta Ready Mix to the Township of Mount Olive, and hereby congratulate Sparta Ready Mix for being a steward of support to numerous improvements within the township to the benefit of all of the township's residents.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Here, Frank, hold that.
You can pretend you like them, Frank, too.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Frank, for
very much.
everything. We
Happy
really
holidays,
appreciate it.
everybody.
You
too.
too. Merry Christmas.
John, get him out of here.
Get him out of the room.
A little late for that. Make a motion to approve resolution number 1.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Where are we at here?
Minutes.
Approval of minutes? Mr. Leander, would you make
Bless
a
you.
motion for the approval of the minutes? Previous
yes.
meetings?
Yes. I make a motion for approval of minutes of previous meetings.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Amianda?
Yes.
Mr. Frente?
Yes.
Mrs. Laybaugh?
Yes.
Mr. Perkins?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mr. Mania?
Yes. Okay, we have some correspondence. Any discussion? Okay, next on the agenda is ordinances for public hearing. Ordinance number 28-2014, an ordinance of the Township of Mount Olive in the County of Morris, State of New Jersey, authorizing acceptance of a deed of dedication for open space for the property currently known as Block 6000, Lot 6.001 from Toll, New Jersey. Mr. Ferrante.
I'll make a motion to move ordinance number 28-2014.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Amianda?
Yes.
Mr. Frente?
Yes.
Mrs. Laybaugh?
Yes.
Mr. Perkins?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mr. Mania?
Yes. Next is
Nope.
ordinance.
Nope, down the bottom.
Oh. Ordinance number 28-2014 is passed on second reading, and I hereby direct the clerk to forward a copy of the same to the mayor and publish the notice of adoption as required by law. Okay, next on the agenda, ordinance number 29-2014, an ordinance of the Township of Mount Olive amending ordinance number 13-2013, which establishes salaries for the mayor, council, department heads, supervisory personnel, and employees of the Township Clerk's Office. Mrs. Laybaugh?
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for adoption and final passage of ordinance number 29-2014.
Second. Open that to the public, Mr. President?
Anyone from the public wish to be heard? If not, I'll close it to the public. Ordinance number 20,
No, no.
I'm sorry, roll call.
Mr. Amianda?
You said
Yes.
hurry up, see, I'm trying to hurry up.
Mr.
Yes.
Mr. Frente?
Yes.
Mrs. Laybaugh?
Yes.
Mr. Perkins?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mr. Mania?
Yes. Ordinance number 29-2014 is passed on second reading, and I hereby direct the clerk to forward a copy of the same to the mayor and publish the notice of adoption as required by law. Next is ordinance number 30-2014, an ordinance of the Township Council of the Township of Mount Olive, amending ordinance number 4-2014, entitled Fees and Rates for Off-Duty Police Officers. Mr. Perkins. Anyone from the public wish to be heard? If not, I'll close it to the public. Mr. Perkins.
Yes, Mr. President, I move for adoption and final passage of ordinance number 30-2014.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Amianda?
Yes.
Mr. Frente?
Yes.
Mrs. Labange?
Yes.
Mr. Perkins?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mr. Mania?
Yes. Ordinance number 30-2014 is passed on second reading, and I hereby direct the clerk to forward a copy of the same to the mayor and publish the notice of adoption as required by law. Okay, next on the agenda is consent motions. Mr. Roman? Hmm? Oh, okay, consent resolutions. Any wish to be moved to non-consent? Mrs. Laybell?
I have a question about one. I don't know if I want to move it to non-consent or just ask the question now, or it's,
Move it to non-consent.
all right, move it to non-consent. Resolution number, oh God, 6.
Number 6, did you say?
Yes, yeah, number 6, please.
Any discussion?
Forgive me, Mr. President, I too would like to move an item to non-consent, number 11 and 10. 10 and 11.
Number 11, okay.
10 and 11.
Okay. 10 and 11, Alex.
Yep.
Any discussion?
Got a motion.
I need,
We need a motion.
Mr. President, I'd like to move consent resolutions 2 through 5, 7, 8, and 9 for approval.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Amianda?
Yes.
Mr. Frente?
Yes.
Mrs. Labange?
Yes.
Mr. Perkins?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mr. Mania?
Yes.
Feedback after the last testing, so.
Yeah,
we're
I think they
proactive.
appreciate, yeah, from what I've heard, they appreciate being kept in the loop, so to speak, so I think that's wonderful. Communication is a
It's a lesson
wonderful
It's a lesson I
thing.
once knew and I forgot and I paid the price for it. so.
Oh, that's okay. Thank you.
Council reports. Mr. Amianda.
Yes, Mr. President. The Board of Education met yesterday, December 22nd, 2014, at 6:30 p.m. at the board office. The board received a first quarter student progress report from Dr. Larry Reynolds, the superintendent. Our schools are committed to education excellency as part of a pathway to education excellency in the district. Each school building has set goals and improvement plans. This year's first quarter student reports were better than last year. The board also received school auditor's report based on the recommendation of the New Jersey Department of Education. The auditor reviewed the financial and management side of the budget. The budget's report was very good. The Board of Education reorganization will take place on January 5, 2015 at 6:30 p.m. at the board office. And that's the end of the report.
Thank you. Mr. Ferranti.
I have no reports.
Mrs. Laybell.
Thank you, Mr. President. For TNR, I just have one comment I want to make there. They're kind of concerned, we're still having a few issues with Dr. Golub in terms of, we thought that when cats or dogs were brought there would be an exam, and they did recently pick up a cat that had terrible situation with mites in their ears and fleas, and they don't understand why that's not being taken care of. I know we've had the discussion numerous times, so.
Did they get in touch with
Yeah.
Frank or?
Well, it's went back and forth. There was a bunch of emails going back and forth, and Frank thought that Golub was doing a medical exam. Apparently they didn't treat them, because when they got the cat, it was full of the fleas and the mites, so.
That's a violation of their contracts. First I've heard of it.
Yeah,
So
okay.
I'll have to look into it.
Yeah, ask Frank about, yeah, because I know it was two, I mean, the mites and the fleas, and you can't miss those sort of things, and, yeah, and I thought that he had to treat, like, as soon as a cat or dog came in, he has to treat them.
That was
But I
part of
think
the
there's,
barbecue.
a little bit of a discrepancy, because something was said about, well, Frank has to authorize it, but I thought it was automatic up to $300 was what I understood.
As I recall, it was automatic up to $300 as well.
Yeah, that's what
I'll verify it. Like I said, this is the first I'm hearing about it, so I don't have to.
Okay,
look into
yeah,
it.
because every time something like that happens, as you know how passionate everyone is about that, and the thought of any,
quiet.
yeah, to have an animal sitting there suffering like that is crazy, especially when we thought we already had it taken care of. So, and I know we've tried to get other vendors, and it hasn't worked out yet, and it's really frustrating, so.
We have a 2-year contract with Dr. Gall, because I've gone through bids and RFQs and really jumped through every hoop I possibly could to get this expand, and he's the only vendor that ever happened, and it's not to
Every single
disparage
time,
him, but
yeah.
he's the only vendor, and it's a legal process, so we have a 2-year contract. I will say, in his defense, this is the first I've heard of anything since last spring, so.
Yeah, well, there hasn't.
Let me look into it and we find out what this.
There hasn't been a lot of animals, that's probably why. But the other point that was made, and I think this resonates even more so, is the fact that as a vet and in boarding facility, why would you want an animal that has fleas? Why wouldn't you treat them? Because it just goes on, the other animals there will get them. So that's what the part that blows our mind, like, why wouldn't he do that? Especially if he's gonna get paid for it. I know,
I don't
it's a
wanna comment
rhetorical
on that.
question there, but thank you very much for checking into that. I'll let them know. Thank you, I have no other reports.
Mr. Perkins?
Thank you, Mr. President. Sean, I'll opine on that. If memory serves me well, and I'm getting older, so it's not always as sharp, but statute requires that a licensed veterinarian facility treat every animal
Every
that's
animal.
brought in. They have to do a complete examination and treat it.
Yep.
I don't know if it says
That's
within
true.
reason or something, but it is a statute, so it is a requirement. Frank can give you that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no doubt there's the obligation, whether it's statutorily in addition to our own contract,
Right.
contractual obligation with the township. Again, I don't know the facts, I don't want to comment to them.
Exactly.
So we can look into it,
Yep.
find out what's
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah, Frank knows all about it, so
Okay.
he'll.
It's in your hands now. Next.
Mr. Perkins?
I am happy to say thank you to Ms. Brett for working together with Dr. Reynolds, now that Mount Olive Television is up and running again. It'll be interesting as we move forward into the first 6 months of next year to see what else we may be able to get aired and get our ordinance changed, as I have mentioned before. And that's it. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Perkins. Mr. Rowan?
I have nothing to report.
Mr. Nacastro?
Nothing legislative. Health Department, last week we met and had our Christmas or holiday dinner, and then we wrapped up a short meeting. And
Where'd you have your dinner at?
We're at Longhorn. We ran over.
Dr. Abrams likes Longhorn, so
Yeah.
we always try to go there. It's quick.
So, other than that, that was it. Wrapped up some things and agreements, and that was it.
Planning Board, we gave an extension to Section 2 of Morris Hunt to 2017. There were lots there that had been declared years ago by DEP as wet lots. And with the construction of Phase 1, some of those lots have dried up. So, it's amazing.
It's just,
But anyway, we gave them an extension to 2017.
Mr. Mania, I have a question. No,
Pardon?
I have a question about that. So when you say you gave them an extension to 2017, are they going to reapply to see if they can build on those lots that were considered wet lots? And then you'll go from there?
Yep.
It's amazing. All right, thank you.
Okay, anyone from the public wish to be heard? If not, I'll close it to the public. Council comments. Mr. Avienda.
Yes, Mr. President. As I come to the end of my first year on the council, I would like to say that it was a pleasure and a privilege to have worked with all of you, and I look forward to working with all of you next year. I would like to thank the mayor, all administrators, and all council persons for the honor. I wish you and your families peaceful holidays and a Happy New Year.
Thank you, Mr. Amienda. Mr. Ferranti.
I just want to wish everyone here, our residents, our staff, a happy and healthy new year.
Thank you. Mrs. Laybell.
Thank you. I want to say, Mr. Amianda, it's been a pleasure working with you also your first year, and I want to thank you for your Board of Ed reports. I find them to be very detailed and interesting, so thank you very much. And I also want to say I think it's been a really fantastic year, and as always, it is a privilege and honor to serve the residents and businesses in Mount Olive, and I hope everyone has a wonderful holiday season and a very, very happy, healthy, prosperous new year. Thank you.
Mr. Perkins.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. Since the Mount Olive TV will no longer be airing this because it only stays on for an hour. It's like you have to time these things to be an hour, Mr. President. First off, again, as everyone's aware, this is my last full year that I will be representing the township on the council. My final day where I will hand in my key and card to our township clerk will be on June 30th. So that will be the last day. It's kind of a bittersweet feeling, to sit here. I guess I've been privileged because I've been honored that the residents of the township voted me 4 consecutive times to represent them. So it's, from that standpoint, it's been rewarding. Great year. Kudos to the mayor, the administration, for all their hard work, our clerk's office for everything that they do. Shared services, going back to a dear friend of ours, Mr. John Biondi, past council member. We started pushing for shared services, especially among our volunteer groups. Our health department was probably one of the first, if not the first department in the municipality here that reached out and began to do shared services, and now we've picked up in sanitation. Our animal control has reached out in different small ways, and as Rob and I have always said, we want to be here in Mount Olive the regional supplier for shared services. We don't want to have anybody taking care of us. We want to help take care of them. So God bless everyone. I hope that was politically correct, and if not, sorry. Have a great Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and be safe.
Thank you, Mr. Perkins. Mr. Roman.
In light of the tragic events that happened this past Saturday in New York City, I'd like to remind all of us to keep in our prayers the families of NYPD officers Rafael Ramos and Wing Jing Liu, and that if we happen to come upon any officers throughout our daily activities, to send them a thank you. And also I'd like to give everyone here a warm Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and I look forward to another prosperous New Year. Thank you.
Mr. DeCastro.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to thank you, John Mania, as president, for leading us this year, and thank you for everything you've done. I'd like to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and it is a privilege to be here and sit here, and I appreciate the being here. So thank you.
First of all, I'd like to say, Mr. Perkins, you will be sorely missed. You have certainly been an asset as a council member to this community. We will miss you.
He still has 6 months left, John.
6 more months to make your life pure hell,
So until then, you'll be an asset without the ET.
That's it, without the ET.
Secondly, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the council for having given me the opportunity to serve as council president. This past year, cooperation of both the administration and council made the office of president a pleasure, and I thank you for giving me that opportunity. Thirdly, I'd like to wish everyone a Merry Christmas, a happy and healthy New Year, and may God bless. Okay, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next we have, non-consent resolution number 6.
So move
Any
it.
discussion?
We have to move it.
Motion.
Make a motion to move for discussion, non-consent resolution number 6.
Is
Second.
there a second? Mrs. Labange, second. Any discussion?
It's a motion to approve, not to...
Motion to
Motion
approve.
to approve.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes. I had a
Mrs.
question.
Leyba?
Mr. Canning, for this one, I just want to clarify, because, as you know, I had some questions about it. Now, what's going to happen with Washington if they have a call for animal control services? They'll call us if we're available, we'll go. If not, they have a backup plan, is that?
Yeah, it's a little bit different than the Byram Township
Right.
agreement we have where we are the be-all, end-all. On this one, we are the primary between 7:30 in the morning and 4:30 in the afternoon, and at that point, we're the backup from 4:30 to 7:30 at night. Overnight, we have no obligation. Now, during the daytime, it's purely if we can respond. That's it.
Okay.
And if not, they have, in the contract they've built in, they have a backup ACO from Mansfield that they'll call. So if they do, then they deduct $100 per call. Like they're going to provide us $6,100 per year based upon the aggregate of the last 3 years of calls. So we receive that $6,100 every time we can't make it, then, they have to pay somebody else, obviously, so that
Right.
comes off our. So it's purely, if we can make it, we respond. If we can't, there's really no harm, no foul. It's kind of a one-year trial run. They, they're kind of looking to kind of piece together a solid ACO program, so they're going to draw from us mainly, but then Mansfield as their backup.
Yeah, that's what I thought, and I guess, I don't know, article in the paper or something, wherever somebody read about it, they thought it was going to be the same thing as Byram, and how are we going to do that? And I said, no,
No, it's clearly
it's not.
differentiated.
It's
We're-
very,
It's much more streamed down, a much more stripped down version of our Byram Township
That's-
agreement. And we had a good meeting with them last week. Their police mainly take the brunt of their animal
that's what I...
control issues, and if they have to, they'll hold them until we get there. They understand that there may be a situation where we're on the far side of Byram, and it's gonna be a good 45 minutes before we
Right.
get down there, at the optimal
Yeah.
speed. So that's the agreement we have for 1 year. We're gonna revisit it next year, and we'll see where we are.
Okay, great, I just wanted clarification. I explained it correctly, so I just want to make sure. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Amianda?
Yes.
Mr. Fuente?
Yes.
Mrs. Labange?
Yes.
Mr. Perkins?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mr. Mania?
Yes. Next is consent motions. Mr. Nacastro?
No, it's not.
Yeah.
Point of order.
Oh, resolution number 10, I'm sorry.
I'd like to move for approval, non-consent resolutions 10 and 11.
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Roman?
My purpose for bringing this to non-consent is to highlight the agreement that was negotiated by the administration and Jeff and Semrau's office.
Paycheck.
Fred?
Fred, Jeff,
Jeff
they all sound
Semrau.
alike to me. It is great to see that this is finally being resolved in a manner with which is, the way I read it, is very beneficial to the township, and that that facility is still going to be operational. So congratulations and thank you
Yep.
again for the excellent work.
Any
Excellent.
other discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Amianda?
Yes.
Mr. Fuente?
Yes.
Mrs. Labange?
Yes.
Mr. Perkins?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mr. Mania?
Yes. Okay, next we have consent motion, Mr. Nacastro.
I move the consent motion bill list.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Amianda?
We are voting on a bill list, right?
Yes.
Okay, I abstain on bill list number 69204, and yes on the rest.
Mr. Fuente?
Yes.
Mrs. Labange?
Yes.
Mr. Perkins?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mr. Mania?
Yes. Administrative reports.
Thank you, Mr. President. I got a couple things tonight. Council earlier today would have received a memo from me regarding the Affordable Care Act, and something that I want to credit our healthcare advice that we received in alerting us to this. In 2014, there was kind of a vacation, if you will, under the new Affordable Care Act. As we've seen in the news, it's a difficult piece of legislation to get your arms around. But
It's
the way it
only
affects-
2,000 pages, please, no one exaggerate.
and I've never read it. I won't be one of the ones claiming that I've read it, unless I get sleepy. In this particular instance, since we are an employer over 100 personnel, it was alerted to us that we have to do certain things. One of them is called a look-back period. I tried doing it as pithy as I could in the memo, but it's still kind of a complex subject. In essence, the question before us and what we're recommending is, do we do a 3-month, 6-month, or 12-month look back in 2014? And the danger or the downside for the Township of Mount Olive is, should we choose to do a 12-month look back period and find that we have part-time personnel that are over 30 hours in the average, even if that person is no longer in the employ of the township, we now owe 12 months prospectively of medical, which could be upwards over $30,000 in a family plan. So I met with Sherry and Christy and Debbie Bonanno, and then the mayor again earlier today. We are pretty confident the mayor is very pleased with the recommendation we've made, which is the 3-month look-back period. We're in that analysis right now. I guess we'll get it probably early next week from Debbie. We feel there are possibly, there may be 1 or 2 employees possibly in the library that may be in that category. And there may be none. We won't know until the analysis comes in. But at worst, we're looking at 3 months of medical bills under the Affordable Care Act. In addition, there's in the memo I outlined, there's strict procedures and policies going forward. Every department head, we centralized our hiring process around here the last 4 years, and we're just reminding all the department heads that centralized hiring and onboarding is more important now than ever. We want to make sure we don't have the situation where we have part-time summer help or some type of people coming on board without our knowing it, or slipping through the cracks and, hey, work more hours next week, work more hours. Next thing we know, we owe some medical. So we just tried tightening up procedures. It's a lot more administrative oversight on our part. I don't view it as a huge danger as long as it's managed properly. So we wanted to make sure that council was apprised of where we're going over this next year.
Sean, if we worked them 25 hours, what does that do for us?
We're fine. We're fine.
No problem. So we
Currently,
gotta make sure that's what we do, right?
Yeah, we define in our policy as a permanent part-timer as anybody under 37.5 hours per week. Now, our policy also said they were not entitled to medical benefits. That obviously flies in the face of the Affordable Care Act, in which we lose. So, in the policy statement, even though a permanent part-timer is defined as less than 37.5, it's incumbent upon all department heads that we don't have any part-timers working on an average over 30 hours. And that's for the entire 3-month period. I'll give you an example that the police have dispatcher training coming on. The first 2 weeks, 40 hours, because they have to, by nature of their business, have 40 hours of training on 911 and emergency medical dispatch. Thereafter, though, for the 3-month period, their hours are such they're not even going to approach the 30-hour average, so we'll be fine. But again, the chiefs alerted to this. All the department heads received this today, and we're going to speak about it not only next week's agenda meeting, in our early January staff meeting.
Thank you, Sean.
You're welcome.
Mr. Roman?
What was the rationale for choosing the 3 versus the 12? Because it sounds like what you were just describing, that it might be beneficial to do the 12 because you can average out those hours over a year. If, say, seasonal work comes along and we spike them up, say, to 35 hours, but then if we average them out throughout the year.
My worry is this: last year's summer help, our areas that we view as our danger areas, so to speak, in this regard, are our recreation department, which has a slew of summer help. And I can't say for sure and tell you right here that last summer they were working an extraordinary number of hours. The likelihood that maybe it wouldn't be over 12 months, we wouldn't run afoul of it, probably you're right, but I'm not willing to bet on that. Whereas our 3-month look back now, October to December around here is fairly quiet. We have some weekend events with the farmers market wrapping up and some other things. Our summer help and our community college kids and DPW are all gone. They're off the book. So if anything, this was our opportune time this past 3 months. Again, the one outlier out there, and it would have been this way in the summertime too, is the library. They're kind of an entity unto themselves, even though they're not a utility, even though they are Township of Mount Olive employees and they come under our medical costs. So were we to do the 12 month and they're to run afoul of that, we may owe somebody a full year's worth of medical as opposed to 3 months. So it's kind of just cutting our losses, so to speak, if if we run afoul of this.
So if it's a 3-month look back that we're doing, so we're doing it every quarter going forward.
Yeah, it's incumbent upon us in 2015 that we make sure, and here's the tricky part with the Affordable Care Act, it's going to fall on Christie and I and Sherry and Debbie, is every 3 months we have to make sure that we basically report, and here's the funny part, Health and Human Services has not established a mechanism as to who we send this memo to. So we're going to send it to ADP, our document company, and I'll send council a memo and we'll memorialize it somehow. Maybe we'll start doing resolutions every quarter to memorialize it. So those every 3 months for our existing employees. And then when we hire, for example, if we hire somebody February 15th, like I said in my memo, that individual, I have to have a tickler in my Google file of, hey, May 15th, we have to verify that that person did not run afoul of the 3-month look-back provision. So every part-timer you hire through the season, which will become concerning come around May, June, depending on what Recreation does and DPW do for the summer, so we have to manage it carefully.
And if we run afoul, we're looking at just having to supply health benefits for a 3-month period?
3 months, yeah. So the downside, again, I didn't want to run into a full year. A full year can cost you more than $30,000, if not more, for a family plan.
But the full year doesn't insulate us by being able to average out, bring down those peaks that occur?
We considered that, but I didn't want to go back and touch upon last summer. Again,
Okay.
we weren't anticipating this last summer, and we only have 8 days to do this. This has to be in by next week. With the holidays coming up, I suppose if I sat here next week quite a bit, I would do it for you, but
Well, I trust that you chose the option that is in our best interest.
thank you.
Mrs. Labo.
Alex asked one of the questions I was going to ask, but the other one, so when you're talking about, like, for the summer help, some of those people are no longer here, so if you did the 12-month, it would go for how long that they were employed. So if they were part-time for 3 months and they went 40 hours on average, then you don't have them for the full time to average it out further, to bring it down the total?
Well,
Is
the
that-
downside of this, from what I'm being told, is say if we had an employee that worked, part-time, 20 hours, 15 hours here through the spring, stayed on to recreation, I'm just picking on them, and made it over 30 hours through the year because they worked so much this summer, and we did the 12-month look back, even if they didn't come back to work here in
Right.
Mount Olive, we owe them 1 full year of full medical benefits.
And you
if
don't-
it's a family plan, you're paying
Right.
for somebody that's not even in your employee.
And you
That's
wouldn't
it.
have the whole year to average it out, you'd have a shorter period of time, because they're seasonal. Is that correct?
Yeah, and if they worked such
okay.
that it became, that was the downside I wasn't willing to gamble on. I was very
Yeah,
comfortable,
that's-
and the mayor agreed. This past 3 months is a very quiet time for us, so in essence, whether it was intentional or not by this legislation, the fall is almost the perfect time
Yeah.
to kind of look back, because it's just a quieter time.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I mean, if you don't have the benefit of averaging out for the whole entire year, you don't want to go back 12 months.
Yeah, there's less
Yes, I
employees here.
agree.
Like I said, October to December is a very quiet time.
Good
It's winding
choice.
down for the year.
And so what'll happen is, so every 3 months you have to do it, so a benefit would have been to go 12 months, it would be less work, but on the other hand,
And the other
it's better to
concern-
keep on top of
As good
it.
as we are and pat ourselves in the back, a lot of things happen over 12 months. And if we get to
Yeah.
next December, I would not want to sit here next December and say, oops.
Oops,
So
yeah,
it just
we
cost
don't
me
need that
at
kind of
minimum
oops.
$30,000, if not more.
Sounds
So we may
good.
not be sitting here in the following January.
Yeah,
Bummer.
So now the good
Thank
news
you.
is, out of this, is come January 1st, 2016, the look-back period as far as the individual people go away, and everybody's on that same 3-month schedule. So I'm being told, unless they change it again.
yeah.
Any other questions?
Thank you. Sorry to give you that good news 2 days before Christmas. Couple other things. 9 a.m. this Tuesday, we have our agenda meetings like we always do before council. The thing that'll make this a little bit special is we'll be giving our 2nd annual Professor Emmett Brown Award. If you recall last year, the professor from Back to the Future. That was an internal award. It was kind of a tongue-in-cheek award, but I am happy to say, and Sherry's one of the nominees this year. We have 8 nominees from around the building this year, and I spoke with the mayor today. We have it down to 3 finalists. We give them a little chia pet head of Professor Einstein. They get a $100 gift certificate. The 2 runners-up get $25 gift certificates funded by myself and the mayor, and they get a nice plaque with Professor Emmett Brown on there. I'm glad that it was a tongue-in-cheek thing, but to kind of encourage innovation. And it's not so much that it's great customer service, it's that what you did had to be a little bit innovative in municipal government, and it's kind of caught on. So this Tuesday, we'll be making our award at our meeting. I want to thank the police department. I thought they did a terrific job. Several months ago, council received some concerns about Clover Hill Drive speeding, and as we've seen here before, they requested speed bumps right away. And since we've discussed it several years ago, The policy, as council has given it to me, was education, enforcement, and then engineering. So the police department, especially Sergeant Poquat, they've taken on the task the last 2 months of really examining identifying the problem on Clover Hill Drive-In. If you read that report, they do have a speeding problem down there. So they're gonna start with the enforcement or the education component, followed by enforcement, and then do a follow-up, and we'll see from there. But I think it's a sounder plan than just going right to speed bumps or what have you.
I have a question. Mr. Meany?
Mrs. Leba.
For Clover Hill, I mean, the big problem is the fact that it is a cut-through. That's the popular part, and it is the main artery going through that development. But I really, I know I've said this before, but I really think the speed limits, the signs that show what your speed is, I just think that they're so much more effective than
agree.
speed bumps, and so...
I agree. I think in their budget, they put in for a couple extra signs. They'd
Oh,
really
good.
like to make them mobile and really bring them around town. I know on Quarry Road coming up from Flanders Neck, that one's burned out. The chief of police knows about it, but the other side's still working.
Yeah.
And I see people, I see the speed, and you see them just slowing down. I think it's a great tool.
It really, it's just because the thing is, if somebody yells at you, slow down, you can't turn around and say, I'm not speeding, it's showing right there you're speeding. So it's just
Yeah, they can't argue with that.
it's so much, and it's better than having to maintain the speed bumps all the time.
Yeah, I want to congratulate Sergeant Poquat. He's been doing a good job with the
He's
the
good.
concerns.
Very good.
Last Tuesday, I was at the Chester Borough Council meeting. As you've seen, the sanitation agreement was pushed through. They had quite a debate down there, and it was more of a philosophical debate on their part. They're making a drastic sea change on their part, because they've always had a sticker program where you kind of pay as they call fair and equitable. So if I put out 1 bag of garbage or 5 bags of garbage, it's proportionate. So from that, they've taken the leap of spreading that cost out among their borough. They're very excited to. They drive through Mount Olive. Matter of fact, when this came up to them, I was very happy to hear. I was there for a couple hours, and the council really had an in-depth discussion on this. Almost all of them did a survey of the Mount Olive residents on Facebook of their friends. The reception they got, and they read it at their council meeting, was very positive. So I was glad to hear that, because I was kind of cool. But the residents up here, now that the hiccups are kind of gone, are very happy with the service. Almost all of them drove through our streets here, and they even said, boy, the streets look great. Especially on garbage day. If there's not recycling piled next to it, it's just the cans, boy, that was one of the things. They want their town to look like that as well. So they're excited for the service. We met again today with the DPW, and we'll be ready to go on January 7th. So I'm glad to see that was successful.
Excellent.
And the last thing I have was, this morning there was an incident at the DPW yard. There was a less than 2-gallon diesel spill. It happens from time to time. Sometimes the nozzles come off, they drive away. There's human error, usually followed up by, we do a causation and whether it's discipline or not. But the issue here was there was some concern between DPW, fire, and the police department. As is our procedure, less than 5 gallons, and the JIF backs this up, less than 5 gallons you're allowed to clean up by speedy dry. We document it, contact. In this case, we contacted the fire department, the police. In turn, contacted County Hazmat. County Hazmat came out, they examined what was going on. They're very confident it's less than a 2-gallon spill. They have to document it, they have to notify DEP, so DEP will be examining it. We saved all the speedy dry and the grit. We ran out of speedy dry at one point, which is what caused the concern. There was not enough speedy dry, the vendor didn't get it here in time, the fire department brought theirs. So if you hear of anything, it was less than a 2-gallon spill. I know it was put on Facebook at some location, it was excess of 10 gallons. The county responded, they verified less than 2 gallons. It was a rainy day, and if you drop a drop or two of gasoline, kerosene, diesel into a water pond, it looks like the entire thing's a slick. So I wanted council to know that that happened earlier today. There was some internal concern. By this afternoon, it seemed to have, all frayed nerves seemed to have been okay, but I'm just going to put it out there so everybody knows what's going on.
How did it happen?
A human error.
Oh,
Human error. I don't want to divulge,
Okay.
the
So it wasn't like
violator,
something broke, it
will-
just, okay.
But somebody drove away with the nozzle. Fortunately, the nozzle's fine. Some diesel spilled, and they put it back. It happens from time to time. It's human beings. There's things happen, and usually there's discipline or there's not. We'll have to look into that.
Okay.
Mr. DeCastro.
Sean, now that we have the single stream, obviously, with all of that, in the recycling yard, when we dump stuff here, can we still dump this? I was here twice the last 2 weekends, but the boxes, if I'm not mistaken, still say commingle, aluminum only, and paper only.
I know Timmy, when I talked to him in the past here, He's trying to keep, if you get the metal separate and you get the fiber separate, he's just trying to get a little bit better of a return if somebody's gonna bring it down
Because the
here.
reason I'm asking is, I came here twice, and I'm wondering, mine is all together. So when I came here to dump it, I'm like, I'm standing there going through it, trying to separate it, I'm like, what are we supposed to do?
I can ask him to get a commingled box. We talked about that. He wanted to keep the fiber separate, just that you get a little bit better return. You get a lot better return on the fiber than you do on the.
Which is
plastics.
fine, but I don't know if people know that, like myself did.
He's gonna have to set
You know
it
what I
down a
mean?
little bit
Because you
better.
bring it in from your house, and I had 2 huge bins, and I'm going through little cans trying to separate them because I didn't want to dump it.
That's a valid point. I saw the initial tipping tonnage from the fall. I'm hoping to get council a report by February. I'd like to see, our goal is a 10% reduction in tipping weight and tipping fees. 10% around here is $70,000. So, it seems to be a little bit easier. I drive by some residents, I see just recycle tremendously, and boy, others, I see a little half a can, and I know darn well there's no way they're recycling, But, we've had, our foreman was out enforcing it. He's been on vacation, and we have our acting foreman out there enforcing and also doing his other job at the same time. So it's not easy, but we're trying to win hearts and minds one at a time.
That's fine. This way I'll know if I not bring it, I'll just leave it for them, but I just want to know, that's all.
I'll speak to Timmy about that.
All right, thanks.
Any other questions?
Put it on the curb, Joe. Put it on the curb.
Oh, it's too much.
Put it on the curb.
Any old business?
I have old business. Mr. Menu. Thank you, Mr. President. Last meeting, we had a discussion about the snowflakes on Route 46, and I did get some further information on it. The one that was out, it turns out what happened was that when you have one of the canisters on a pole with a light, it has to be calibrated a certain way, and they went out and they recalibrated, now it's working. The other thing is, we do have 10 other snowflakes. They're kept with our vendor who stores them for us, and we just need 10 more canisters. And what Tracy Wadhams, she's been in control of all of this. She wants to put at least 4 more up on the highway by the lake, but unfortunately, it's $500 per canister to do that. So we do have the 10 snowflakes that we bought when Hackettstown was they were changing their decorations. So it would be nice to get them up and have a little bit more decoration. She wants to have some over on 206, another 1 or 2 up here at Town Hall, and like I said, 4. So it'd be 6 on this side and 4 on Flanders. So the question is, how do we come up with $5,000 for the canisters? And I don't know if Mr. Canning, if you could talk to our representative from JCP&L and
Sharing informs me we have sufficient funds now at the end of the year. We can do it. The only concern I have is, I immediately the next day I sent an email to
Right.
Mr. Lynch about this, and he said that in the past the JCP&L had expressed concern about certain poles on Route 46 that they didn't want them up there, but it was an old 10-year-old survey. I had asked them
Yeah.
to reach back out to JCP&L, saying, things change.
yeah.
I don't see why that would be, but
Yeah,
and I haven't heard back yet.
Yeah, but supposedly that is not a problem, but the other thing is there's a time frame. They need their request for the canisters by August 1st. So if we're going to do that, if we can get the funds in there to wrap that up. And I don't understand, truthfully, I don't understand why they charge you for the canisters to begin with, since they're making the money on the electric, so and they have to maintain them and all other stuff, so I'm not really, so if you could find out why are they charging to begin with, and if we do get 10, can we get a discount?
Yeah, I will tell you, I've been frustrated by this issue as well. This came up in 2012 when I
Right.
first come here, and I'm sure it came up before that.
Oh,
I
yeah.
just I was never satisfied with the feedback I got. This one I'll handle personally. I'll get in touch with Michael Bremski.
Okay, great.
I've never been satisfied with the responses I've gotten.
Yeah, oh, that'd be wonderful, because then we could at least, 'cause it would be nice to have, because the ones that are by the lake, it does look pretty. It'd be nice to have a couple more and to just finish it up, so.
Yeah, I was thinking about that the other day. I was driving through, I believe, Denville or Lake Hiawatha, and saying there's just a multitude
They're
of
just-
snowflakes.
Yeah.
And they look nice during the Christmas season.
Yeah, it really does, and that's a nice, it's nice to kind of really show off the lake a little bit more at that time. It is really pretty when you see them, and, all right, great, thank you very much. I'll let Tracy know.
I'll handle this one personally, too, and actually ask Tracy to reach out to me. We'll
Okay, great, thank you.
Mr. Perkins?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to touch base on the JCP&L, not unlike water purveyors or other, PSE&G, they have an approved tariff. And if that item's in the tariff, which has gone before the Board of Public Utilities, for as much as they would like to let you have 5
Yeah.
or 10 of these things, they can't do it because it's an item that's already in there, it's included
Right.
in their rate case studies. So they can't just arbitrarily go ahead and do that for us, so.
Yeah, I
And
know.
we tried that the first time around, it didn't work.
I know, we could try again, though, because you never know. Just ask. It was 10 years ago, and ask again.
Just gotta see what's in their tariff, that's
Yep.
all. Thank you, Mr. President.
Any other questions? Any new business? Legal matters.
Thank you, Council President. Just one item tonight, we just wanted to touch upon Resolutions 10 and 11 the council approved tonight. We were very happy to bring these both to resolution. The resolution of the tax appeal with the New Jersey Housing and Mortgage Finance Agency has resulted in 2014 pilot payment to the township, which we view as essentially a windfall since the property was exempt for 2013-14. Our resolution of the pilot agreement with the new prospective purchaser, Paragon Senior Living, we also believe is a great result to the township, as it will result in additional revenue to the township, potentially substantial additional revenue to the township for the life of the agency mortgage. So again, we were very excited to be a part of this, as we always are when we're part of something that brings a great benefit to the township.
Yeah.
So that's my report tonight. Thank you.
I have a legal question. How's everything go with Cobblestone?
I'd have to check with Tracy
Okay.
from my office. She's been handling that, but we can get council an update.
Okay, good. Yeah, because we were supposed to have the water test 2
Sure.
weeks ago, right? Was that
Maybe
Sean?
Sean can answer.
I think that came
Yeah,
back.
the initial results were very positive.
Oh, were they?
So,
Okay.
so where we're at right now, and I believe there's some dialogue going back and forth between the property owner's attorney and Fred. So there seems to be possibility of some negotiation despite being far apart, and I don't want to elaborate further. But the water tests were positive. We're speaking to Homeless Solutions. They look like they're prepared to reevaluate, certainly not the amount of units that they were initially seeking. So they're going to reevaluate where they're at. It looks like it's a go at this point, that it's we're slowly, prepared to go ahead. If we get to the point where we acquire the property and they reevaluate, that's going to go through the planning board process. I know there's a lot of angst and concern over in that neighborhood, and the planning board process is the appropriate forum. And I've been telling people that I know, the mayor's been telling them, I'm sure council's
I've been, yeah.
they'll have their day in court, so to speak. Those public hearings, they'll be able to express all those concerns. But the water issue seems to be satisfactory.
I just have one more question for
Mrs. Lebo?
You were going to send notice to all of the surrounding neighbors when you were able to do that?
Several times. After the
Okay.
beating I took the first time, I was not gonna repeat that one again.
Yeah, so how is the response now? Are they they're glad they understand we're keeping them informed and up to date?
Yeah, I received, I
Yeah.
didn't get any, did not receive any